My name is Claire, and if you told me a year ago that my entire life would come crashing down in a single dinner, I would have laughed. I thought I had everything. A husband I loved, a stepson who trusted me, a home that felt warm and safe. But here's the truth, you never really know how fragile happiness is until you see it shatter right in front of you. And the person holding the hammer isn't a stranger, it's the one you thought you could trust the most. I came into that marriage thinking I had finally won at life. Daniel was charming, successful, and he made me feel like I was the center of his world. We'd met through work, at a conference I hadn't even wanted to attend. He walked into the room like he owned it, all confidence and smooth words. Normally, men like that put me off, they feel too rehearsed, too perfect. But Daniel? He had a way of making you believe his attention was only for you. And God help me, I fell for it. It wasn't long before I became more than just the woman he was dating. I became Ethan's stepmom. Ethan was 9 when I met him, a quiet boy with big brown eyes that carried too much sadness for his age. His parents' divorce had left scars on him, the kind kids try to hide but can't. I remember the first time he hugged me without being asked. It was after I helped him build a science project for school. He wrapped his little arms around my waist and whispered, "Thank you." That moment sealed it for me. This wasn't just about Daniel anymore. This was about family. For years, I believed in us. Sure, there were bumps, but what marriage doesn't have them? Daniel had long hours at work, stress from his job, the occasional business trip. Nothing that made me suspect anything more than the usual strains of adult life. But then things started to change. It was little things at first. Daniel started showering the minute he got home, which wasn't like him. He became protective of his phone, flipping it face down on the table, carrying it into the bathroom with him. He'd smile a little too hard when texting, then shove the phone in his pocket when he noticed me watching. And the cologne, he suddenly wore it every day, even though for years he told me he didn't like it. When I confronted him about it, he always had an explanation. Stress, Claire. That's all it is. Or, you're imagining things, babe. And I wanted to believe him. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself not to ruin a good marriage with suspicion. But then Ethan started acting strange. He was quiet, withdrawn, not his usual self. At first I thought it was school or maybe something with his mom. But one evening, as I tucked him into bed, he looked at me with wide eyes and asked, "Claire, do you and Dad ever lie to each other?" The question chilled me. "Why would you ask that?" I said softly. He shrugged, pulling the blanket up to his chin. "I just wondered." That was the first red flag I couldn't ignore. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Daniel had suggested we all eat together, something we hadn't done in weeks. He brought home takeout from Ethan's favorite place, the kind of thoughtful gesture that used to make me feel loved. We sat around the table, chopsticks in hand, plates steaming. Daniel was overly cheerful, laughing too loudly, trying too hard. Ethan barely touched his food, staring at his plate with a storm brewing behind his eyes. Halfway through the meal, Ethan's small voice cut through the air like a knife. "Dad," he said, "are you going to tell her, or do I have to?" The room froze. My chopsticks slipped from my hand. Daniel's smile disappeared instantly. "Ethan," he said firmly, "that's enough." But Ethan's lip trembled, and tears welled in his eyes. "No, it's not enough. You made me keep it a secret. You said she didn't need to know. But she does." My heart pounded in my chest. "Know what?" I asked. Daniel reached across the table, his voice sharp. "Ethan, stop." But the boy shook his head. His voice cracked, but the words tumbled out in a rush. "He's seeing someone else, Claire. He's been sneaking out, and I saw him. I heard him. He told me not to tell you, but I can't keep it in anymore. It's not fair." The world stopped spinning. I stared at Ethan, then at Daniel, whose face was pale and furious. The man I thought I knew sat there in silence, and in that silence was confirmation. I turned back to Ethan, my voice shaking. "You're sure?" The boy nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I'm sorry, Claire. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep lying." Daniel slammed his fist on the table, making the dishes rattle. "That's enough. Go to your room." Ethan flinched but didn't move. He looked at me, eyes pleading, as if begging me to believe him. And in that moment, I realized something. The truth had come from the only person Daniel thought he could control. His own son. As Ethan ran down the hall, sobbing, I sat there staring at the man I'd built my life around. My husband. My betrayer. My rage boiled beneath the surface, hot and sharp, but I didn't explode. Not yet. Because something inside me whispered that this wasn't the end of the story. This was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Not a single second. After Ethan's confession exploded in the middle of dinner, everything felt like it had been tilted off its axis. Daniel stormed into our bedroom after putting Ethan to bed, pacing the floor like a caged animal, spewing excuses and anger in equal measure. "You know how kids are," he snapped, hands flying through the air. "He makes things up. He doesn't like seeing us happy, Claire. He wants to cause trouble." I sat there on the edge of the bed, arms crossed, my heart pounding. "Don't you dare blame this on Ethan." My voice was sharper than I intended, but I meant every word. Daniel froze, his eyes narrowing. "So you believe him? Over me? Do I believe him?" I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Daniel, your own son was shaking, crying, terrified because you made him carry your secret. Do you have any idea what that does to a child?" He clenched his jaw, and for the first time, I saw something in him I hadn't wanted to see before. Not guilt. Not regret. Just rage that he'd been caught. "I work my ass off for this family," he hissed. "And you're going to crucify me because a kid doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut?" That was it. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not from sadness anymore, but from clarity. The man I thought I married was gone. All that remained was a liar who hid behind charm and paychecks, and now he was angry that his little house of cards was crumbling. I stood, steadying myself even though my whole body trembled. "Get out, Daniel." His eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Go stay at a hotel. Go stay with her. I don't care. But you are not sleeping in this bed tonight." He glared at me, lips pressed tight, but he knew arguing would only make it worse. He grabbed a duffel bag, yanked clothes from the dresser, and slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled. The silence that followed was suffocating. I sat on the edge of the bed again, burying my face in my hands. The weight of betrayal pressed against my chest like a stone. But as heavy as it felt, there was also a fire building beneath it. I wasn't going to crumble. I couldn't, not with Ethan in the next room. Because that boy, he was just as much a victim of Daniel's lies as I was. Maybe more. The next morning, I found Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, still in his pajamas, pushing cereal around his bowl. His eyes were puffy from crying. When he looked up at me, my heart shattered all over again. "Claire," he whispered, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything." I walked over, kneeling beside him so we were eye to eye. "Don't you ever apologize for telling me the truth," I said softly, holding his small hand in mine. "You did the right thing. You were so brave." He blinked, tears gathering again. "But Dad's mad at me." I swallowed hard. "That's not your fault. Your dad made mistakes, not you. Do you understand me?" He nodded, though the sadness in his eyes lingered. I hugged him tight, silently promising myself I would protect him from being caught in the middle of Daniel's lies again. The next few days were a blur of silence and tension. Daniel texted me constantly, sometimes begging, sometimes furious. "Let's talk. You're blowing this out of proportion. think about Ethan. I made a mistake. Then, hours later, answer me, Claire. You can't just ignore me. I didn't respond. Not once. Instead, I started thinking. Planning. I replayed Ethan's words over and over in my head. He's been sneaking out. I saw him. I heard him. That meant there was proof. Maybe not in my hands yet, but somewhere. And if Daniel thought I was going to let this slide, he had no idea who he was dealing with. I started small. Checking bank statements, credit card charges. There it was, dinners for two at restaurants he'd never taken me to. Hotel charges in the middle of the week, just far enough away from his office to make it suspicious. A jewelry purchase I never received. Each discovery was a stab to the chest, but it was also fuel. The more I uncovered, the calmer I became. Because the truth was, Daniel had underestimated me. He thought I'd cry, scream, maybe forgive. He thought his charm could spin this away like every other problem. But this time, he was wrong. I made copies of everything. Screenshots, bank statements, receipts. I kept them in a folder on a flash drive, tucked safely away where he couldn't find it. Every lie I uncovered became another weapon in my arsenal. And all the while, I played my part. When he came by to see Ethan, I kept my voice cool but polite. I let him think maybe I was softening. Maybe I was considering giving him another chance. He leaned into it, too, bringing flowers, promising vacations, swearing he'd change. But behind my calm smile, I was already building his downfall. The hardest part wasn't facing Daniel. It was facing Ethan. Every time Daniel visited, Ethan would shrink into himself, quiet and uneasy, like he was waiting for another explosion. It made my blood boil, knowing Daniel had dragged his own child into this mess, made him complicit in lies a grown man should never have asked a boy to carry. One night, as I tucked Ethan into bed, he whispered, "Are you going to leave him?" I froze, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "Why do you ask that?" "Because." "I hope you do," he said softly. His words broke me in ways I can't explain. But they also steeled my resolve. If my own stepson wanted me to walk away from his father, then I knew I was doing the right thing. That was when the final piece of my plan clicked into place. It wasn't enough to just leave Daniel. No, he needed to be exposed. The world needed to see him for what he really was. And I was going to make sure he couldn't escape the consequences this time. Because he thought he'd never get caught. But thanks to Ethan, he already had. The night I decided to end it once and for all was a quiet Thursday. Ethan had gone to bed early after finishing his homework, and the house felt heavier than usual. Daniel had been trying harder in recent weeks, showing up with small gifts, offering to mow the lawn, cooking Ethan's favorite meals, but I knew it wasn't love. It was desperation. He sensed I was slipping away, and he wanted to reel me back in before the truth came crashing down. I had waited long enough. My folder was thick with proof now, receipts, screenshots, photos, and messages I'd quietly pulled from his phone when he carelessly left it unlocked on the counter. He wasn't just cheating. He was spending money recklessly, lying about business trips, and even texting his mistress about how he wished he didn't have to deal with the family drama. Every discovery was another nail in the coffin of my marriage, and tonight, it was time to drive the last one in. I invited Daniel to dinner under the guise of wanting to talk things through. He arrived in a crisp button-down, holding a bouquet of roses like we were in the early days again. I forced a small smile as I took them, placing them in a vase I knew I would throw away later. Ethan sat at the table too, quiet but watchful, as though he could sense the storm brewing. Dinner was uneventful, but when the plates were cleared, I leaned back and folded my hands in my lap. "Daniel," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk." "Really talk?" He sighed, feigning exhaustion, as though he was the one burdened by my mistrust. "Claire, I've been saying we should talk for weeks. Finally, you're ready to listen." "No," I corrected softly. "Finally, you're ready to hear me." He frowned, confused. What does that mean? It means, I said, reaching for the folder I'd tucked beneath the sideboard, that I know everything. His face paled as I laid the folder on the table and opened it. One by one, I slid out the evidence: receipts for hotel stays, dinner reservations, the jewelry purchase that never came to me, and finally, printouts of the text messages I had saved. Daniel's jaw clenched as he scanned the papers, his breathing growing heavier. You went through my phone? You went through our marriage, I shot back. I'm just documenting the crime scene. He reached for the papers, but I pulled them back. You don't get to rewrite this. It's all here, Daniel. Every lie. Every betrayal. Every ounce of proof that you made your son carry the weight of your secrets while you played house with me. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his small hands gripping the edge of his chair. I put my hand on his shoulder, grounding him. You don't have to hide anything anymore, Ethan. Not from me. Not from anyone. Daniel's eyes darted to Ethan, then back to me. You're dragging him into this, he snapped. This is between us, Claire. No, I said firmly. You dragged him into this the moment you used him as a cover for your lies. Don't you dare blame me for that. Silence stretched across the table like a taut wire ready to snap. Finally, Daniel pushed back his chair, running a hand through his hair. So what now? You've embarrassed me enough. Do you want a divorce? Fine. Is that what this is about? I stared at him for a long moment, the weight of my decision pressing against my chest. Then I spoke, each word deliberate. This isn't about divorce papers, Daniel. This is about accountability. And I've already set things in motion. His head snapped up. What are you talking about? I leaned in slightly, my voice quiet but razor sharp. Your mistress's husband has a copy of this folder. So does your boss. And if you think I'm bluffing, try me. By tomorrow morning, everyone who needs to know will know exactly who you are. Daniel's face drained of color. You wouldn't. Oh, I already did, I cut him off. You don't get to walk away from this unscathed. Not after everything you put Ethan through. Not after lying to my face night after night. This isn't revenge, Daniel. This is justice. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not guilt. Not regret. Just fear. He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. He looked at Ethan again, maybe hoping his son would defend him, but Ethan didn't say a word. He just sat there, watching, silently choosing his side. And it wasn't his father's. Daniel finally muttered something about needing air and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was deafening, but this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was freeing. I turned to Ethan, my chest tightening as I saw the uncertainty in his eyes. Are we going to be okay? He whispered. I hugged him, pulling him close. We already are. In the weeks that followed, everything unraveled for Daniel exactly as I had planned. His boss confronted him with the evidence, and the mistress's husband filed for divorce. His perfect image of the charming family man shattered overnight, and suddenly, the lies he had balanced so carefully collapsed around him. Ethan and I built something new together. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Honest. We made pancakes on Saturdays, stayed up late watching movies, and took long walks where he talked more than he ever had before. Little by little, the shadows Daniel left behind began to fade. And me? I discovered a strength I didn't know I had. I wasn't just the woman who had been betrayed. I was the woman who refused to be broken, who turned the truth into a weapon, who taught a little boy that secrets don't have to stay buried in the dark. Daniel thought he'd never get caught. But thanks to Ethan, he did. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all.